Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode, we are going to break down my favorite matchup of the week, which is going to be Kansas versus BYU. Now, I know if you're looking at this line, you're probably like, if you're just a casual person, you're probably like, this shit doesn't make any sense. How is BYU, a top 15 ranked team, only favored by 3.5 over Kansas? What am I missing? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're missing the forest for the trees, okay? And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to break this down, and at the end of this episode, if you still think BYU is the play, then, this channel might not be for you. Now, so let's take a look, okay? On early downs, Kansas is elite offensively. They're 11th overall, but where they're really elite at is rushing the ball. 5th in EPA on first and second downs, which would be BYU's weakness here, okay? And Kansas rushes the ball 60% of the time on first and second down. These are gigantic, splits, right? And remember, these rankings are out of 70 Power 5 teams. So this is against Power 5, defenses. This isn't factoring any, non-conference that were, easy games or, Division II games or anything like that. Now, when we flip over to the opposite side, Kansas is not good defensively. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they are and act like that's going to be part of the cap, because it's not, okay? They're just not good defensively. But as you will see, I don't know if that's really going to matter. So let's go to the advanced statistics side of it, all right? Kansas offensively, 14th overall in efficiency and 59th in explosiveness. Now, those aren't earth-shattering numbers, but we're going to take a little deeper dive here. They're second in stuff rate and second in offensive line yards. These are rushing metrics, okay? And you have right here strength on weakness, stuff rate 102nd, defensive line yards 92nd. And then look here, they're 4th in rushing efficiency, 28th in rushing explosiveness, and again, 99th in rushing efficiency, 94th in rushing explosiveness. So this is the weakness of BYU. Their biggest strength is easily their pass defense. As you can see, 17th and 20th. That doesn't really matter, though. Kansas isn't looking to do that. They will pass it, obviously, but as we dive deeper into this later in the video, you'll see that that is not their main objective or their main point of attack. Now, when we come over to the BYU side of the ball, they are very good offensively. 30th in efficiency, 21st in explosiveness. Excuse me. And Kansas is not. They're not. I'm not going to sit here and act like these numbers are going to magically change. So I know you're sitting here and you're like, well, Andrew, BYU's defense is okay, but Kansas's defense is horrendous. Yeah, I get all that, but I don't care. When we look at a couple other things here, Kansas does show up in areas that are decent. Their overall havoc is solid, 45th, and they're balanced, when it comes to front seven and defensive back havoc. And then, these are below average numbers from an efficiency standpoint and from an explosiveness standpoint. And so, that is going to be somewhat concerning. So we're going to look at the depth profiles just to kind of get an understanding of what type of, offenses they will be running, right? So BYU here has not been good passing the ball against these Power 5 defenses. They're dead last, or they are 62nd in passes 9 yards or less, their EPA. And they are last in these passes, only attempting them 49% of the time. So they are trying to take big shots down the field consistently. That is their game, passing the ball, right? And they throw it in the medium area, third overall, 29.9% of the time, 15th in deep percentage attempts. And, they're pretty good. They're 24th. That's a little bit above average. And that's kind of what you're looking for if you're going to make those attempts. You have to be above average, right? So the key is we're going to look at the Kansas side of the ball and see where they're struggling, right? So they are struggling in this short area, but it is at it's not behind the line of scrimmage because they're very good at snuffing out those type of passes. It's in the short range, very bad. And then when we go down the field, they are below average in defending down the field, and on the deep ball, considerably below average, right? So when we're looking at those things, it does give you a little concern, right? And BYU here, their secondary, like we had already said, is their strength defensively. So none of this that you're seeing is shocking, okay? So when we look at Kansas' side of the ball and what they want to do passing, which is not their optimal, like where they want to go, they're average. They're 18th in the short area, 21st in 9 yards or less. And then, one thing here that is eye-opening, they attempt down the field deep passes at the number one rate, okay? 25.3% of the time, they are throwing the ball 20 yards or more down the field. Now, that is a strength on strength because that is what BYU is really good at defending. But here's the thing, okay? These pass attempts are going to be different than a normal 20-yard pass down the field because Kansas is going to have success running the ball, and these type of pass attempts usually are happening off play action, right? And at some point, BYU is going to have to load the box, and they're going to have to try to defend this run, and I'll show you why that could be detrimental to them in the long term or in the short term for the game. So when we look at the third and fourth down high leverage situations, BYU is very good, 9th on offense. And, not shockingly, Kansas is very good, and it's led by this rushing attack. They're 4th overall. And then when we come to the opposite side of it, the defense that is supposed to be part of their calling card is average on 3rd and 4th down. And Kansas's is not. They're below average, which is, again, part of it, right? So let's look at Kansas and just the misfortune that they have brought on themselves, okay? They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0-5 in one-score games. That is insane. To have not crossed the barrier and be 0-5 in these games is insane to me, all right? And every one of these losses, they could have won easily, all right? And I think that showed up against Iowa State last week where they were only 3.5-point dogs. Another line that people were like, I don't understand. I don't get it, So what I want to show you, which is what we've kind of been diving into the whole handicap. Their rushing attack is led by Devin Neal, who is probably a top 10 running back in college football by far. Daniel Hinshaw, is solid too. And then Jalen Daniels is not a super, mobile quarterback, but he is mobile enough, right? But look at the game log here, okay? They are averaging, their lowest yards per carry is 4.58 yards per carry. That is insane, okay? These type of, yards per carry attempt number is just, you can dominate a game script and a game with these type of numbers if you're up against the right defense. And boy, do I have for you the right defense. Let me show you BYU of late and their abysmal rushing defense. But first, they all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are 5-0 in one-score games. So you kind of see where the rubber is going to meet the road. One of these things is going to have to give at some point, right? So when we go to the rushing defense, to say that this defense is bad and is a sieve of late would be an understatement. Look at the last 3 games. They are giving up 7.27 yards, 6.24, 4.9. The game against Utah last week, they should have lost. There's no They should have lost. They should have lost the Oklahoma State game, like, to be perfectly honest. And they beat UCF, which, just a turnover-ridden game for UCF. But, I digress. This seems to be like a square spot for BYU. And I think that when we're looking at this, through the optics of, matchups, BYU offensively is not elite at really anything. They're not having strength on weakness matchups. Like elite strength on weakness matchups like Kansas is. And that is enough to like turn the entire tide. And I think here in this matchup, Kansas is going to be in this game the entire game. And I would go to say that there only can be two outcomes here, okay? BYU again sneaks by and wins another close one, or Kansas breaks, or three outcomes, Kansas breaks through and wins a close one finally, or Kansas blows them out. But I do not see BYU blowing this game out of proportion. So because those are the only three outcomes in my eyes, I have to lean with Kansas here, who has the best matchup and the best strength on weakness side in the entire game. And usually when a line looks to be too good to be true, it usually is. But looking deeper into this, I could see why it's only 3.5. Because if you laid 7.5, it would be insane. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, family member, loved one. I really enjoy doing these videos. It is a passion of mine. I love, football. I love sports and, mathematics and stuff like that. It's one of my passions. And I'm just trying to get as much content in as I can. Sometimes I do 6, 7 videos in a week. Sometimes I can only do 1 or 2. And if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment at the bottom of the video, and I'll do my best to get to it tomorrow, which is my last day of recording this week. And yeah. So other than that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.